Hello friends, welcome. If you are new here, my name is Amanda Willis. I empower families to wellness authentically through biblically rooted principles. And in today's video, I wanted to share with you guys how I went from eating Pop-Tarts and the standard American diet to being a biblical health enthusiast and wanting to teach that to other people and really share that and spread that to other believers. And why I find it important and how that kind of came about in my story. Because I think a lot of times people hear me teach, or we're even having conversations, or they come over to my home and they see the way we prepare food and the things that we don't have in our house that most homes have, or things that we have that a lot of homes don't, and they're curious, but what they're seeing is something that's almost 16 years in progress and little baby steps that I've taken versus it just being an overnight thing. And so there's a lot of little baby steps I've taken along the way and a lot of things that I've learned that have really influenced my passion for living the way that we do and for really helping others to learn that way as well. So without any further ado, let's dive right on in. And we'll kind of rewind to my childhood. Now, I grew up eating the standard American diet. My parents did the absolute best that they could with the information that they had. They were incredible people, and they gave us the best that they knew how, which was pretty much what everybody else was doing. You know, we ate our standard breakfast for the most part was Pop-Tarts or Quaker instant oatmeal or your standard breakfast cereals, you know, the Fruit Loops, the Rice Krispies, etc. And then at lunch, frequently we'd bring a Lunchable to school or buy the school lunch. And fun story, when I was in high school, I used to save, my mom would send us with lunch money, and our school got out at 2:10, but I got done a little bit earlier my senior year because I had internship for my last period. And so I got to get out of school a little early to go to my internship. On Fridays, we didn't have internship, but I still got out at the same time. So what I would do is I would use my lunch money from my parents. I would spend $1 of it in the lunchroom, in the commons area, at the ice cream stand, and I would buy a Snickers ice cream bar. And friends, I ate a Snickers ice cream bar most weekdays at school, Monday through Friday, my entire senior year of high school. Okay, so I would do that, and then on Fridays, when I got out and I didn't have to go to internship, I would take the money I'd saved during the week from lunch, and I would go to my favorite Chinese restaurant and grab the lunch special. It was kind of brilliant on my part. I finally told my mom I did that just a few years ago because I had never told my parents that that's what I was doing. I knew they wouldn't approve of it. And on the days that I didn't go get Chinese, you know, Monday through Thursday, what I would do is, because you need more than a Snickers ice cream bar for lunch, when I got home, I was still hungry and I would just eat whatever we had in our pantry. Friends, oftentimes it was Oreos or potato chips. I'd eat an entire bag of Lay's potato chips. So my diet was less than balanced. And then I was a competitive dancer growing up, and we pretty much lived at the dance studio during the week and on Saturdays too, to be honest. And so though we did have a lot of family meals, my parents were really great about trying to get us around the table as often as possible. We also had to get to the dance studio for 5 o'clock classes pretty regularly, and then we were there till 9:30, 9:45 at night. And so sometimes, frequently, dinner was Burger King or the Chinese place that I love, which was right next to the dance studio. We would get that a lot, and I didn't have time to eat. We were usually running late on the way to class, and I would shovel food down without really taking the time to chew it. And so my digestive system slowly was getting taxed. And then, like I said, we didn't get out of class until 9:45 most nights, and we'd get home and have still a lot of homework to do. We were starving, wouldn't get to bed until really late, and then school started at 7:10 in the morning, which means we were not sleeping the way that we should, and we were getting a workout, that was for sure. But there was a lot of stress on our bodies that they aren't really designed to take without the rest and the nutrition to supplement them. So I was tired all the time, all of the things, and my body was really trying to tell me that it didn't love the input or the output by the way that it was responding. However, I didn't know at the time, and neither did my family, that these kind of things really impacted infections. And so I would get annual strep throat infections. I had frequent ear infections as a child. In fact, my right eardrum ruptured 3 times from infection when I was a baby and when I was real young, and then once a traumatic rupture in high school. I had frequent headaches. Like I said, I was tired all of the time. And I had some stomach cramps and some other skin issues that we didn't know what they were. My doctor didn't know what they were, and we didn't really have answers for them. I also had hyperhidrosis, which is where your hands and your feet sweat for no reason, essentially for no reason. I should do this when I say that, because I'll get into that a little bit more later on in my story. But these were all symptoms of things that should have been warning signs. But because our culture doesn't learn that those are warning signs, we see them kind of as the problem versus as the symptom of the problem. And so we slap a Band-Aid on the problem and don't deal with the issue. That's why they keep coming up as recurring. So anyway, let's fast forward to college. So I was a dance major in college, and in my senior year of school, well, we had to take a class when I was at school, we had to take a class in nutrition for dancers. And honestly, I didn't really learn that much in that class. It was kind of like, watch your calorie intake. And you need to make sure you're getting enough calories, but don't get too many. And it was very, very basic. It wasn't anything like the way that if I were to teach a nutrition for dancers class today, that I would pour in all of the focus on whole foods and, all the things. So I was interested in more information about that though, because my college had weight restrictions. So we were one of the top performing arts programs in the country. And so we had to act as professionals while we were in school. And that meant weight restrictions. I saw dancers that were handling their weight really, really unhealthfully. And that was never a desire of mine. I didn't want to do these unhealthy practices that I was seeing sweep through the dance program. And interestingly enough, when it was my, the summer going into my senior year, I believe is when this was. It was either 2004 or 2005. I can't remember what part of my senior year it was, but I remember I went down to visit a friend. I actually went down to audition for dancing at a convention down in Dallas, and I stayed with a friend of mine from school. And while I was there, her mom was very involved in this company that was very nutrition based, and on her bookshelf, she had a copy of Jordan Rubin's The Maker's Diet. Now, I had never heard of Jordan Rubin, nor had I heard of The Maker's Diet, but I saw that title, it really stood out on the shelf to me. And I couldn't explain why. I was just like, that's interesting. I wonder what that's about. Sounds like, and I knew they were believers, and so I was like, sounds like maybe I should look into something. And so when we got back from that trip, I ended up checking out the book, The Maker's Diet, from the library. And I read through it, and friends, I was floored. I had no idea. In that book was the first time I ever connected that God cares about what you put in your body, and that there's instructions in His Word for what to put in our bodies and what not to put in our bodies. And there's principles in His Word for how to live in a healthy way and steward the temple that He's given us. Your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, to steward that well. And so that kind of started this rabbit hole for me of research, but just on a light level. So I started doing very, very simple things. Like I cut out high fructose corn syrup, I cut out artificial colors and flavors, I cut out hydrogenated oils, and I started eating organic. But friends, it was just as processed as before. It was just organic and processed. So I went from Cheetos to organic Cheetos. Still a step in the right direction, avoiding the artificial colors and the GMOs and all that kind of stuff, but still not really getting all the nutrition that I needed. And then fast forward to 2011. So probably 6-ish years later, okay, I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease at the time. I had gone in, I had a fungal infection I was unable to get rid of using over-the-counter things. I went in for that, and after running all of these tests, we discovered actually some symptoms I'd had back in school were related to what I was dealing with here, and I had chronic Lyme. And so that began, I was at an integrative medical clinic for that, and that began a huge deep dive for me into nutrition, into caring for my body the way that God designed our bodies to be cared for. So I really started researching even deeper. I went back to the Maker's Diet. I grabbed that book again and I searched and read through the pages. And that was around the time Jordan Rubin had started another company called Beyond Organic. Now this company is no longer, but when I started with this company, it was right at the beginning that they had started, and they had some really great education. They had a Beyond Organic health coach certification. So I went through the coach certification process through Jordan's Beyond Organic company, and I learned so much. This is where I learned about grass-fed versus conventional beef, a topic we'll dive into in just a couple weeks, and the difference and how the nutritional profile is completely different in certain foods, and the importance of it. His book certainly was not, and this coaching program was not the only research I did. I started really diving in deep. I found the Weston A. Price Foundation and Nourishing traditions. I started eating foods that our ancestors have eaten for years and preparing them using the methods that they used to prepare them with. And I started watching my health transform. I had hit kind of a roadblock, though I was doing everything I could to care for my body physically that I knew how to do. However, I had not yet connected the dots of the spiritual, and I had learned a little bit about the emotions underlining, because honestly, what kind of got us to the diagnoses of Lyme was there were a few really big trauma events in my life that traumatic events in my life that triggered symptoms. The emotions from that triggered the symptoms. And so my naturopath had asked me, did you have any sort of big event, heartbreak or anything like that happened? And I was like, oh, right at the time of that symptoms starting in 2010, yeah, that had happened. And so I had connected a little bit of the emotion part, but the spirit pillar was missing. When we talk about the pillars of biblical health, when I talk about those, I talk about the 3 pillars being your body, your soul, and your spirit. And it was here in 2013, I believe it was, when I went to the For My Life conference Be in Health Ministries put on, and I learned about the spiritual roots of disease and connected those pillars. So see, this is like a layering process. I started, cutting out some things, learned about that, and then learned that God cares about what we eat, cut out some of the really bad man-made stuff, and then went back to trying to get food in the form that God created it to be in, and then adding on top of that, caring for my emotions and caring for my spirit biblically. And then it was in 2015 that I was introduced to Young Living essential oils, and the essential oil aspect was added on top of that, which really just opened up so much with the mind and the emotions and everything as well. While I was going through chronic Lyme, which I no longer deal with, and if you haven't checked out my video on my Lyme story, I shared that a few months ago, and I'll be sure to link that in the description below for you. But it was then that I learned that there are really only 2 things ever, two things that contribute to dis-ease in your body. And those 2 things always are either an abundance of something that's not supposed to be there, an abundance of something above the threshold that your body would like. So whether that's a toxicity of heavy metals, whether it's too much stress, it could be too much of a certain vitamin, too much of a certain chemical, all of those kind of things. It could be too much of a certain bacteria or virus that's over the threshold of the good bacteria. And then, so that's one thing. The second thing is a lack of something. So maybe there's not enough vitamin D, maybe there's not enough vitamin C, maybe, all of these different things. You don't have enough sleep or rest. You don't have enough community in your life. You're not getting enough water. Those are all things that can add up. But dis-ease is only ever those two things. One of those two things. Too much of something, too little of something. Health really is super simple, friends. Super simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And God's given us the principles for that. If you want to learn more about caring for your body as a temple and the principles of stewardship and health as stewardship, I'll link that video below for you as well that I did a little bit ago so that you can learn a little bit more about that. But I hope that what you've learned during this story is one that you can see. I didn't just wake up one day living the lifestyle that we live now. This has been a baby step process over, 2004, 2005 to 2021. So 15, 16, 17 years. It is a baby step journey. Every baby step counts. Every baby step makes a difference. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. In fact, it tends to be longer lasting results and more sustainable if you kind of baby step and take one thing as a focus and add that until that's easy and comfortable, and then adding on something else. So I hope this video was encouraging for you, friends. If it was, please be sure to give it a like and share it with someone that you think could benefit and be encouraged by it as well. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more videos just like this every single week. Take care, friends. Cheers.